Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo sarando suchedoye alahudi samya sanputoshe. Namo sarando suchedoye alahudi samya sanputoshe. 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Excuse me. Whoa. Here we are. Venerable Master, Dharma friends, Shifu Shangren, Guwei Shishung Daja, Amitofo. Delighted that you're here today. Welcome to our sutra lecture. We're about to launch into this week's investigation of the Flower Garland Sutra. We're on the 10 stages chapter, and let's just get right into our process. Actually, we're continuing our formalities for the before we actually touch the sutra, and this is our very fluid, not fixed at all, process of preparing for a sutra lecture. I've in the from the Chinese tradition, the Tiantai school, heavenly vista, the vista of heaven, Tiantai. There are also traditional formal ways to do a Dharma request, and some of them take half an hour. And by the time the sutra finally is opened, everybody's nodding and asleep. So we're, Master Hua expects us, or requires us to be creative, to be responsive to conditions as we do our Dharma request. So our version includes a banjo. Now, maybe that's going too far for some of us, but every time I ask folks, should we remove the banjo from the ceremony, people say, no, let the banjo sit. We'll take it. Invocation of the Flower Garlands Sutras Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Here we go. Namo last time. Homage to the Buddha's Flower Garland Sutra, great expanded teachings, and the Ocean-Wide Flower Garland Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. That's the current translation of Mahavaipulya Buddha Avatamsaka Sutra. So, work in progress. We're still learning as we go. Maybe that's the way it always is. Who knows? So today, November 14th, here in Australia, November 13th in the United States. One of the joys of looking at the calendar is keeping track of the passing years. And this week, we're going to be celebrating the centennial, the 100th birthday of Rita Simmel. Bless her heart. She's they call her the godmother of interfaith in San Francisco. And Rita is a very sweet 100-year-old Jewish former news reporter, hard driving, case cracking reporter for the San Francisco. I don't think it was the Chronicle back then. It was a different San Francisco newspaper. She and her husband made their way in San Francisco, and bit by bit, Rita became known to everyone, and the size of her heart, she was so huge that whenever there was a new initiative in San Francisco, like a battered women's shelter or orphans, home for orphans, and childcare, and then interfaith, et cetera, Rita was always the first one there and giving her full support. When I first got to know her, she was the chairman of the board of the Graduate Theological Union's board of directors. She was the first first chair of the Global Council of United Religions Initiative. And Rita knew everyone, everybody from Mayor Willie Brown, San Francisco, to the first time I met Nancy Pelosi, Senator Pelosi was a Representative Pelosi, who was the Speaker of the House of Representatives. It was introduced by Rita, who was, Rita was godmother to several of Pelosi's children, you know. So wonderful hero of interfaith is a fellow Scorpio having her birthday this month, so this week. So just wanted to mention that. Let's see here as we get started. Here we are. Very important section today that I talked about last week. It has to do with faith. And, you know, faith is a very different experience in Buddhism. But here is unapologetic. This is the aspects of faith for the Bodhisattva on the first stage of the 10 stages. There. I'm gonna hide that. Okay, there we go. That's, yeah, big enough. Okay, I'll move it as we go so we can see it. Ready? Here we go. Sui shun xin up. Wrong, sorry. 2 lines down. Here we go. 诚敬信者，有信功用，能信如来本行所入，信成就诸波罗蜜，信入诸圣地，信成就力，信具足无所谓，信生长不可怀，sorry, one more time. 信生长不可坏不共佛法，信不思议佛法，信出生无终边佛境界，信随入如来无量境界，信成就果。举要言之，信一切菩萨行，乃至如来智地说力故。That was a tongue twister for some reason. Okay, here we go. their faith becomes purified. Their faith functions for them. They are able to believe in the practices that the thus come ones have mastered. They believe they've accomplished the paramitas, believe they've mastered the supreme stages, believe they've accomplished the powers, believe they've fulfilled the fearlessnesses, believe they've nurtured the indestructible special Buddha dharmas, believe in the inconceivable Buddha dharmas, believe in the creation of the Buddha states, which are neither to one side nor in the middle, believe in the successive mastery of the limitless states of a thus come one, and believe in the realization of the fruition of Buddhahood. To summarize, they believe in all the practices of bodhisattvas up to and including the description of the powers of the thus come one's wisdom stages. Okay, boy, that's a lot, isn't it? And when what are we doing? I'm gonna bring up this document and ask now, repeat what we're about, which is we explained the 10 stages from 1 to 10. We turned around and went back to number 1. And we're trying a different approach to the sutra. The first round, we're looking at language, we're looking at context, we're looking at translations, all the different things. And that kind of step-by-step granular approach tends to obscure or not make possible the opportunity to listen to the language, the beauty of the text, listen to the beauty of the language of the text and the flow of the ideas. So that's what we're doing. We're going again to hear the principles arise. Now, as I said that, I realized that it was so tempting to take a deep dive again one more time to bring out the details. So we're doing both now. We're listening for the flow of the ideas of the sutra. We want to hear it in English. That's the point. Many Chinese reading, Chinese speaking Dharma friends tell me that only after hearing the English translation do they feel a connection to the sutra. Why? So that's mysterious. It probably has to do with the electricity in the brain with your first language and all. But more importantly, I think, is that after 2,000 years of Buddhism in China, things get stuck. Things get rigidified. They get frozen in time and space and culture. And it's hard to hear them outside of that time and space and culture. Precisely why the Buddha said, don't write it down. Don't write it down. Make it and keep it an oral tradition. Well, you can't, if you do that, your chances are you lose the whole thing. So at some point, the disciples wrote it down. And we're looking at write down number 1 was from the Buddha's spoken language, which people are not quite sure which one that was. 2 into Sanskrit or Pali, 3 into Chinese, 4 now into English. So this is the 4th go round putting it in language. And so a language has so much to do with the way you see the world. Just the grammar, how you conceive of subject, verb, object. And all of the things built into language, we in America, we in Australia, don't appreciate what English means to a citizen of the UK, where I'm told that within a couple sentences, pretty much you know so much information about that person. You know their class, you know their education, you know where they grew up, you know the TV shows they watch, you know the friends they keep. So all that stuff is coded in the language, right? So the language we use when we're using a new language, English in this case, and it's being retranslated back into Chinese and also into Vietnamese by our hardworking, dedicated volunteers. So anyway, now we have an English language Avatamsaka, a new approach, another set of senses, ears in particular, are being used. We want the Buddha's voice to come forward as he told the story of the first stage. We honor the story in the sutra, the flow, the story. What happens next? What happens next? Oh, I forgot that happened. Yeah. We watch the flow of the action, hear the points of the conversations, understand the principles that are set up. And hopefully, we expect that doing this, we'll get a better chance to actually catch the sutra, to hear the dharma, to absorb the wisdom, and listen to the stories being read. I love when my mom or dad or a teacher or the lady at the library would read stories. And as we go, another important point to make here is that if I'm doing my job as the spokesperson, the person who gets the job of interlocutor, the one who gets to bring the text forward, if I'm doing my job, the silence will be there too, and the breathing, so that in your mind, as you listen, and if you're watching the screen, you can also read it too, you can get the pictures accurately in your mind that the Buddha, the translators, and the speakers are hoping will happen. Sometimes you can even close your eyes. Open them again, don't keep them closed, mind you. But when you close your eyes, you can hear something in the sutra that you won't hear other ways. Okay, there we go. So that's what we're about. Now, faith. Faith is the source of the way. I realized I didn't bring that up. Faith is the source of the way. Can we find that? Faith is the source. Let's see if that pops up. 10 stage one heart. Let's see. Documents. Hey, hold on. Don't go away. Looking for the documents. Not there. Okay. Try on faith. There is a statement in the Heng Sure on the chapter. Yeah, there it is. Good. There we are. In the word, they call the worthy leader, the goodness leader, the leader of goodness. He says there, and I don't recall who is the speaker of the Heng Sure. Anyway, it goes like this. Faith is the source of the way, the mother of merit and virtue. It grows and matures every wholesome dharma. It cuts through the net of doubts and leaves the flow of love behind. It opens up the highest road to nirvana. Faith has no turbidity, no stain. It purifies the mind. Faith eradicates arrogance. It's the basis of respect. Faith is the primary asset of the Dharma treasury. Faith purifies the hands. One can then begin to practice. With faith, one can give, and the mind will not be stingy. With faith, one can happily enter the Buddha's Dharma. With faith, one's wisdom, merit, and virtue all increase. With faith, one will surely arrive at the stage of the Tathagata. Faith makes all the faculties pure, clean, and keen. Faith's power is solid. Nothing can destroy it. Faith pulls up the roots of afflictions forever. With faith, one can concentrate on the Buddha's merit and virtue. With faith, one is not attached to any state of being. Far apart from difficulties, the faithful one becomes untroubled. Faith leaps over the many roads of demons to reveal the high road to liberation. Faith is the indestructible seed of merit and virtue. Faith can grow a Bodhi tree. Faith can increase supreme wisdom. Faith can reveal all Buddhas. Therefore, when speaking of reliable practices in their proper order, the bliss of faith is the winner. It is the finest of rarities. Okay, 那个是先手品里边的一段这个语系. Yeah, good. Did somebody find it? Yo, good. Hey, you're quick. All right, good. So we had a bhikshu among Shifu's disciples named Heng Chi. Heng Chi graduated from St. Olaf's College in Minnesota which is a famous music campus. St. Olaf has the best choirs. Many composers in Hollywood and in the opera and operatic and symphonic worlds came out of St. Olaf. So Heng Sure graduated from St. Olaf's. And his name is Paul, now Paul Hop. And Paul put a melody to this, and it became an anthem. And it's a challenge because it's all the lines, notice, are different lengths, but it goes, the first couple lines were, faith is the source of the way. Faith is the mother of merit and virtue. It grows and matures every wholesome dharma, like that. So very Christian hymn based, but it did it. It was worth it. We didn't pursue it to bring it to maturity. Someday maybe. It's really powerful because, I mean, look, this is just so clean and clear and solid and grounded as praise of faith. Look at what our Bodhisattva believes in. Their faith, Bodhisattvas on the first stage, their faith becomes purified. Their faith starts to work for them. They are able to, and then we switch to a different verb. Now, Chinese speakers may not, I don't know if Chinese, if you can get this subtlety, 信就是信. There's 信仰. There is 信托. There is 相信 in Chinese. So I guess maybe Chinese has enough, but English has all these words for faith. There's belief. This is a belief that I hold. I believe in that. It also crosses over into trust. I trust that that is true. It is trustworthy, right? That's worthy of trust. I myself am worthy of that trust, or unworthy. I don't want to loan him money. He is not trustworthy. There is faith and trust and belief are the powerful ones. So what goes into, one of the things I like about the Chinese way of looking at faith is the word itself. Let me show you here. Xin. Okay, it's spelled this way, Xin, third tone. This, I can't split the character in two on the screen, but the left-hand side, those two strokes, the thing that looks like kind of like a stick with one branch, that's human, that's man. Okay, so when it's spelled out of combination, it's this way, 人, 人, second tone. So you can see this part, when it goes in combination, becomes this part. What do you combine it with? You combine it with this word, yan, which is another pictogram. It's an open mouth with words coming out of it, going up. The mouth is down below, the square is the mouth, and the words are coming out of the mouth. So, yan, second tone. You put the two together and you change the shape of the ren, and you get xin. You see how ren and yan come together in xin, right? This is the result of that and that. Now, what is it saying? It's saying that this person's words make up something I can believe in. What is faith? Faith is you stand beside your word. You are as good as your word. Do we take him, what do we say? We trust he's as good as his words. He walks his talk. He is believable. He is trustworthy. He has integrity, right? All these ways we refer to somebody who, judging by their words, are faithful. You can stand by their word, literally. That's the case where literal really means literal. That's what it is. He is standing beside his words. So that is something we can trust. Okay? You believe in him because he is as good as his words. And the opposite is true. If somebody's words are unreliable, he is not trustworthy. Don't believe in him. Don't have faith in that person. So the question comes up in philosophy and religion, in law, in the court of law. What is faith? What is faith? Faith in things unseen, we say. You haven't seen it, but you still believe it. Okay, that works. The Bodhisattva here is now where? He's on the second stage of the 10 stages. He is happy. She is happy. Fears, 5 kinds of fears have gone away. And this person now, in their meditation, in their recitation, in the things they do in their religious practice, they now have opened their heart to what level? To a level where, I left out one here, got to bring up, excuse me here, colors, where are my colors? Hello, colors, red. There we go. This is what their meditation has brought them. They believe that the Buddha has actually mastered these practices. They can see, for them, it's not only words anymore. Originally, faith, according to our chart that I've just shown you, analyzing the character, faith has to do with people's words. Somebody told you. They said, the Buddhas mastered their samadhi. They entered the dhyanas, they perfected first, second, third, fourth dhyana. They can enter the flower, the Huazang Shijie Ding, Huazang Shijie Sanmei, Huazang Shijie Hai Sanmei. They can enter these samadhis. They can master them. At this point, the bodhisattvas have, through their own uncovering of their hearts, they can know this is true. They are on the first step of the path. If they're climbing a ladder, they're on the first rung, but they're on the ladder. So they know the Buddhas did it more thoroughly, more completely, more fully. They mastered it. The first stage bodhisattvas here are sniffing around the beginning. They've set foot on the path, but they can see the end and they know it's true. The paramitas, they believe that the Tathagatas, the Buddhas, have mastered the paramitas. These bodhisattvas are still working with them, but they see how mastery can happen. The stages, we're on the first stage, they can see all the way to the 10th and know that it's possible. They want to do it too. Now, look at these. The 10 powers, the 4 fearlessnesses, the 18 special Buddha dharmas, they're always mentioned as a list because Buddhas have these. 10力, 4无畏, 18不共法. These are the Buddhas. They only come ripe at Buddhahood. If you have any ignorance left, any self left, they don't work the same way. Our first stage bodhisattva knows they're working. So he believes them. He doesn't have the fullness of them in himself, but he knows they're real. Then there are inconceivable Buddha dharmas. The ability to understand all of cause and effect. At one point, somebody, what was the circumstance for that? Oh, I know what it was. Oh, I have a story. I'll tell you a story. It's a story about cause and effect. And it's a hard story. At Gold Mountain, the original Gold Mountain at 15th Street in San Francisco, first major Mahayana monastery in America. Master Hua attracted young students and hippies, but he also attracted a large number of faithful devotees in Chinatown. Some of the folks who had been through the Chinese Exclusion Acts, which were repealed only in 1968. Otherwise, Chinese had to be off the street after dark in San Francisco. The Chinese, they couldn't vote. They couldn't immigrate except with special conditions and all. Couldn't hold office, couldn't hold business in their own name, etc. It was these racist laws that were put in place around the gold rush time, so 1849. So for a century, the Chinese were discriminated against in San Francisco, the city where, other than New York, they were the most populous. So lots of these disciples knew about Master Hsuan Hua and came and were regular supporters. The left home people were almost exclusively Caucasian Westerners, but the real support of the monastery came from the hands and the hearts of the Chinese disciples. Among them was Alice He, and her husband, whose name I've forgotten. And Alice was a really devout believer. She came to see Shifu every week, brought him newspapers, took his robes to clean. She made that offering she wanted to. She would bring food for the Sangha, and she was really faithful. The problem was that her husband was not. Her husband raised poultry, chickens, and ducks, and was so successful that he cornered the market for almost every Chinese restaurant in San Francisco for Peking duck, Beijing Kaoya, right? Peking duck, and all the chickens that were raised to be slaughtered and sold came through Alice's husband. And she knew that his killing karma was heavy. And Shifu would tell her, Alice, important that you and your husband change your métier. You ought to change your job. 知道师父，知道. I'm sick. I will do it. 我们会，师父，我们会. And he would say, you really ought to do it, Alice. Tell your husband. Well, I think her husband's name was Tommy He. And Tommy used to take his earnings and go to Las Vegas and go to Reno. Reno is not that far from San Francisco. You just drive across the state, across the Sierras, and enter Nevada, and there you are. You come down out of the mountains of Nevada and over the Sierras, and here's, in the midst of this dark blackness at night, is this incredibly lit up city surrounded by dark mountains. It's Reno. Casinos. Tommy would go to the casinos in Reno and Las Vegas, gamble, and live the high life. Well, Shifu knew and cared about his disciples, and at one point he told us to tell Alice when she came in that she really needed to change her career, her husband's career, because now was the time. We told Alice, and 知道. I know, Sifu, she would say. And she would say, we're trying. He's eating less meat, So that was what Shifu had us do, try to put some pressure on her. And so one morning, it was a Sunday, we came down from after meditation, and there was the newspaper, San Francisco Chronicle, and it said, fire in the Marina District. The Marina District was where Chinese could buy nice homes. And there had been a fire that night, and it had burned out one particular home, $1 million home. And because Tommy and Alice had new high-tech electric gates that would open on the push of a button, the fire department couldn't get in. And so the fire burned for a long time before the fire department could fight their way in to extinguish the fire. And what did they find? They found the old couple in the back room burned to death. And so this was a Sunday, and it was the afternoon lecture, and everybody knew, everybody talked about it. The phone kept ringing and ringing. Did you hear about Alice and Tommy? And so during the lecture, Master Hua talked about it. He said, you all know Alice. You didn't see her husband that often, but Alice came all the time. And karma is weighty. Karma is fierce. You should all learn to respect cause and effect. He said you have to believe that cause and effect, or karma, however you want to say, karma and its retribution, say it that way, both good and bad. Karma and its retribution are the law of the universe. There is no escaping. He said, even so, he said, we can still recite the Rita Sutra on behalf of Alice and Tommy and transfer merit. So we'll recite once a day for a week for our Dharma protector, Alice He, and her husband. He said, what is karma? What is it like for all of us? He said, it's like a stew. What is stew? Well, you dip your spoon into the stew pot and up comes a carrot. And you dip out something else and here's a potato. And you dip out something else and here's a chunk of tofu. It's a vegetarian stew. And he says, does anybody know the totality of the contents of the stew pot? Yes, Buddhas do. Buddhas are the only ones who know the totality of the karmic stew of living beings. Otherwise, it is simply too mixed up. Even bodhisattvas at the 8th, 9th, 10th stage can't see the whole thing. They don't know the qian yin and the hou guo, the former causes and the latter results completely. So look at Alice and Tommy. That she had such good roots with the Buddhism. She was a faithful disciple. She made offerings. She didn't miss a week. And yet, when the time came, she said, just like Peking ducks in the back of their apartment, back of their home, burned to death. He said, it's never off by a hair's breadth. So I'll never forget that story. And we recited for a week and transferred the merit of Rita Sutra. Maybe we'll see Alice again in the future, hope so. But the faith in the what? In the inconceivable Buddha dharmas. Look at this. Who inconceivable means what? Means there's no language for it, there's no thinking of it. It's beyond the realm of language and thought, but it's really real. And the Buddhas keep track for us. So how about that? Meanwhile, there's so much of the Dharma that is completely conceivable, cause and effect. So believe in the inconceivable Buddha dharmas. Believe in the creation of the Buddha states. I like this. They're neither to one side nor are they in the middle. You go, how's that again? If they're not to the left, they're not to the right. They have to be in the middle, right? Nope. The Buddha states are not bound by language, thought, or direction or time. Got that? No, but I appreciate it. Believe in the successive mastery of the limitless states of a Tathagata, thus come one. So what would that be? Well, here's our Bodhisattva on the first stage, on the way up to Buddhahood. They believe in the realization of the fruition of Buddha. In other words, they believe it can happen. It's possible. You can become a Buddha. They believe in all the practices of bodhisattvas up to and including the powers of thus come one's wisdom stages. So here are 10. Look at this. Practices, paramitas, stages, powers, fearlessness, special dharmas, inconceivable dharmas, Buddha states, limitless states, Buddhahood itself, bodhisattva's practices, and the wisdom stages. So they've heard of these states, they believe in them, but they're not theirs yet. They're not yet theirs. They still have a way to go. Vajra Treasury told them at the start why he didn't want to lecture. He didn't want to explain this. He was afraid that they wouldn't get it. It's too much. Bodhisattvas in the first stage know these are possible. He prepared them, but now because of the joy, the happiness that they experience themselves, they go, I know there's more. And I want to hear from Vajra Treasury about this. These things are possible. Furthermore, inside myself, I have the potential to realize these states. Cool. That's the first stage. Musical interlude to help us digest the faiths of the Bodhisattva. And people will say, I thought Buddhism wasn't about faith. What about Chan? Do it yourself. Yeah, also true. Also true. What about Pure Land? Ooh, that is the teaching of faith. We have to take the lore about Amitabha completely on faith, because the Buddha himself said, no, there's no proof, there's no tradition, there's no context. I'm going to tell you a story that you can only take my word for. That's the only place in the Dharma that the Buddha said, just believe in me. And there's good things ahead if you do. You will be happy if you take my word for it and say, Namo Ami Tuofo, Namo Amitabha. That's the key that opens a door to a pure land, a paradise. Please accept my word. The only time he says that. So do you understand how I presented the 10 propositions of the first stage Bodhisattva's beliefs? It's that. Now, on the first stage, what happens? Happiness happens, the stage of happiness. Huan Xi Di, it's called. Chu Di, D-E-D, stage of happiness. And it's through his or her meditation, their willingness to be generous, the offerings they've made, the stillness that they have in their mind, the way they have approached the precepts, they've changed their behavior. As a result, things have changed. Their hearts are open like never before. They can see the roots of what in the future, as they progress, will flower into a huge tree, a Bodhi tree. The roots are now in place. So it is still their experience, but they can believe that, wow, I've got this much. The Buddhas have, must be wonderful, must be wonderful. I'm going for it. That's how faith works. If you only take it from somebody else's word, at some point, you're going to need some sort of experience to go along with it. How the, okay. Let's see now. Okay, I'm going to share something now and then come back to the sutra later. I got an email from most of the good Dharma stuff that comes online. I get from Professor Epstein, from Ron Gorong. Ron Epstein combs he's got his mail feeds are working for him. Whenever anything that says Buddhist or Buddhism or key tag words pop up, he gets it in his feed and he sends the best ones on to us. The Pew Research Center recently said 5 facts about Buddhists around the world. And what are they? Take a look here. Buddhists make up roughly 7% of the world's population 6 years ago, but they are expected to decrease to 5% in 40 years. Okay, they even give you a chart. Look at that chart. Oh, Buddhists are dropping down. Now, this was 6 years ago, which was barely when mindfulness had kind of started to show up. Notice, Christians raise 1%, Muslims raise a lot. Unaffiliated drop 3%, 15, let's see, Hindus drop, Buddhists drop 2 points. Other religions, constant. Nope, they drop 2. So interesting. Okay, just hold that fact. Keep that in mind. Half, let's see, they say, why is it? Check it out. Relatively low fertility. Buddhists, it's not that you're infertile if you're a Buddhist, it's you make less use of your fertility. Fewer kids compared with other groups. Not expected to grow significantly due to conversions or religious switching. Now, if this were asked in Singapore, my Singaporean Buddhist friends would say, very true, very true. It is so. It is happening. It is true. My kids went to Hillsong Church. My kids went to Open Harvest Church, the mega church, on Sunday, where they have rock and roll ceremonies in the sanctuary. I wanted them to be Buddhists like me. They're not. It is popular in Singapore to leave old-fashioned superstitious Buddhism behind and go to hip, socially mobile and lucrative Christian denominations, mega churches. So from Singapore, that would be the case. But where I live in Australia, where I live in California, it's the other way around. People are coming to Buddhism from old-fashioned superstitious or moribund, kind of lethargic Christian denominations. Not always. There's wonderful Christian groups, both in Australia and the US. But if anything, the opposite phenomena is taking place. So it depends for the Pew Trust where you ask. Who are you asking? Who are your informants? Okay. Now, the thing about relatively low fertility rates, I don't know. Buddhists are meditating more, having fewer babies. I don't know. Maybe that's how it works. So half the world's Buddhists live in China, according to statistics 11 years ago. 11 years ago, things are very different. Still, Buddhists make up 18% of the country's population. Okay, so half, if you look at all the Buddhists in the world, half of that group live in China. In China itself, only 18% are Buddhists. Most of the rest live in East and South Asia, 13% in Thailand, where 93% of Thailand's population are Buddhists, 9% in Japan, 35% Buddhists. 1.4 of the world's Buddhists live outside Asia. Well, that's us. We're that 1.4. Mind you, this was 11 years ago. Okay, this is an interesting point here. Buddhism in Asia is a matter of both identity and practice. Scholars and journalists have documented that many people in Asia engage in Buddhist practices without considering themselves part of any organized religion. Okay, again, same point. Where are you asking? Who are you asking? If you're asking in the village, in Thailand, for example, if you're asking up in the Northeast, most people will say they're Buddhists, but not exclusively. There are other things too. Furthermore, in Asia, wherever Confucian culture went, people are not exclusively one thing. They are, yes, Confucian, yes, Taoist, yes, Buddhist, yes, Minjian Xinyang, popular belief. So these are, it's not hard and fast. When the Pew Research Center asks, what's your religion? Only through a Christian lens do people say, I am baptized only through monotheistic faith. Yes, I am a Baptist. I am a Southern Baptist. I am not an American Baptist. They define it so tight. In Asia, religious identity is a very fluid thing. You don't use that Christian lens because it's not monotheistic, where you must declare your identity and your membership to the exclusion of all else. Very different. So this is not effective to get a good answer for, what's happening to Buddhism. Okay, scholars agree that Gautama Siddhartha was born in current Nepal, taught in current India, but Buddhism has disappeared in India, and not so much as reduced in Nepal. Yeah. 1% of Indians, 10% of Nepalese call themselves Buddhists. Yeah. The vast majority of people identify as Hindu. But Siddhartha was born into a Hindu family, Brahmanas, more likely, right? Hinduism is considered to have originated from Hindu traditions. Hindus were Buddhist. Okay. This is interesting scholarship, but to conclude from this, however, that Buddhism is on the wane, you have to ask other questions to get meaningful statistics. Indeed, Buddhism has disappeared from India, but one interesting way to look at it is, where are young Indians or people who take part in the Indian diaspora outside of India, what are those young people reaching for when they want questions, when they want to ask spiritual questions? Not Hinduism necessarily, other than Holi, other than Diwali, the festival of light. Holi is the color festival. Many of them are looking at the same place as young people worldwide, which is the mind, meditation, mindfulness. So Buddhism is being reintroduced to India through the back door. Buddhists make up roughly 1% of the adult population in the United States. 2/3 of US Buddhists are Asian Americans. Okay, according to Pew estimates, among Asian Americans, 43% of Vietnamese, quarter of Japanese identify as Buddhist, with most of the rest identifying as either Christian or religiously unaffiliated. They don't give us a date for that conclusion. These are estimates. They say that, that's helpful. But I would suggest that judging by the people who are coming to Dharma Realm Buddhist Association, many of them are hyphenated identities. They're Asian American, Taiwanese American, Vietnamese American, Japanese American, Korean American. They're coming back to the faith that their parents abandoned when they came to the West. There's so many reasons, such as, let's say a Taiwanese couple married in Taiwan, for example, came to America for graduate school, for their graduate degrees. They left Taiwan behind. Their parents were Buddhists in Taiwan. They were raised scientifically in a science environment. And they wanted, when they got to the US or Canada or Australia, New Zealand, they wanted to associate with a dominant culture. So they didn't raise their children in any particular faith. They may have sent their kids to a Christian church or a Sunday school, because people in America were not Buddhist then. And so the kids, although they had Buddhist roots, maybe 2 generations back strongly, their parents walked away from it. They themselves now are researching strongly, are looking to stand on their roots of faith and culture that were their birthright through the generations. So there are many stories here that these statistics don't do justice to them. Check this, this is fascinating. Look at the chart. Buddhists older than world's overall population. Okay, Jews are the oldest. There you go. So what about all the young Jews who I know? Yeah. So, okay, unaffiliated, 36. The average age of the Buddhists in America, 36. That means I get to, I'm twice that old, so I can stand in two digits on me. So Buddhists are old. According to estimates, as of 6 years ago, things have changed so much. They're older than people in other major religious groups. Muslims, 24, Hindus, median 27, Christians, median 30, right? So interesting, right? And what do we do with this? Well, put it in the folder, chart it, and hope that the Pew Research Center gets some new data, that they, update their, continue to update their sources. Here are the questions that came to me. How do you measure Buddhist identity? If I were the Pew Research Center, what questions would I go out and ask our community today, right now, here in Gold Coast, Dharma Realm? Were you raised in a Buddhist family in China? Not since 1949, not publicly, because when Marxism arrives, if you're doing pure Marxism, you downplay religion. Religion is not as important as your party identity. So that skews the statistics right away. Did you take refuge in the Mahayana style? Did you say, Jin Xing Shou Neng Chi? Did you say, Jin Xing Shou Gui Yifu, to the end of my life, I take refuge with the Buddha? Did you say, to the end of my life, I take refuge with the Dharma? When we, here in the Chinese Mahayana tradition, Han Chuan Fo Jiao, as taught by Master Shen Hua, becoming a Buddhist. So when this form comes along, you would say, yes, I am a Buddhist. That's a ceremony that's done maybe 6 times a year. You prepare for it. You get a Dharma name. You are confirmed. You are christened with a new Dharma name. That's worthy of saying, yes, I am a Buddhist. Or instead, did you attend a Vipassana retreat where if, depending on some point in the retreat, everybody went, Buddham saranam gacchami, Dharmam saranam gacchami, Samgham saranam gacchami. I take refuge of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and nothing else happens. No Dharma name. You don't say to the end of your life. You do it for the length of the retreat. Different style. Excellent way. So do those people raise their hand and say, yes, I'm a Buddhist? Or you say, well, at one point for the retreat I was, but since then I've, I take refuge in money, I take refuge in alcohol, I take refuge in Netflix, I take refuge in my credit rating, But at one point I took refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. So how do you answer the questions then? That's going to give you a different answer. If you, at me, autobiographical, you were a young person, you read Jack Kerouac's Dharma Bums. You read Alan Watts' The Way of Zen. You read Philip Kaplow's The 3 Pillars of Zen. You read Gary Snyder's multiple publications, poetry on Earth Household. I was moved. I wanted to be like them. I wanted to adopt those views. Does that qualify as a Buddhist? And how old am I? Am I 36? Am I, So what defines Buddhist identity? These are important questions for the pollsters like the Pew Research Center. Maybe you decided you wanted to get into Taekwondo. Maybe you were studying Shotokan Karate. Maybe you were studying Jiu-Jitsu or Judo or Kendo. You're learning to chop with the samurai sword. And your sensei, your shifu, your sifu said, as master, our martial arts role model, Master Jiang Yunzhong, he said, you must know Chan is the highest. He said, Chan is the highest. Not moving is the highest martial art. Because why? You overcome birth and death through Chan. If your sifu, shifu, sensei told you that, you pay attention, right? Are you a Buddhist? To what extent are you a Buddhist at that point? If you say, you must be no, Chan is the highest. Maybe you watched Kung Fu on TV in the 1960s and you saw Kwai Chang Caine walking in a kind of a dull stupor across the West, watching cruelty happen around him and trying to make it right, kind of like a Batman Robin Hood hero. You wanted to become like Caine. Many, many thousands of Americans who watched Kung Fu were inspired. It was the first time you heard the word Shaolin, certainly. So because you want that quality of strength and softness at the same time, what Caine learned was some aspect of the Dharma in Shaolin Monastery. He brought it over and it was put on your TV screen as a Western. Yeah, I became a Buddhist as soon as I watched Kung Fu. Maybe it was a book, stories and poetry, called Zen Flesh, Zen Bones, by an idiosyncratic Swiss traveler called Paul Reps. I highly recommend it. If anybody has a chance and you're interested in this, go look for Paul Reps, was the author. Zen Flesh, Zen Bones. I don't get any kickback from this, but I do enjoy. I still read periodically Zen Flesh, Zen Bones. Here it is right here. Go get a copy if you haven't. Put it on your bookshelf. There it is. A collection of Zen and pre-Zen writings. Great stories. So maybe you read Paul Reps' Zen Flesh, Zen Bones and said, yeah, I want something to do with that. That's, as I've heard from lots of non-religious intellectual friends, people who think, who sympathize with reincarnation, with the notion of emptiness at the heart of things, with not self, with impermanence. They see impermanence happen, nonviolence, kindness and compassion, cause and effect, causality. They understand this triggers that, this links to that. And the cosmology. They say, yeah, I really watch animals, and there are dharma realms here operating at the same time. Maybe there are parallel worlds, the hells, the level of ghosts, the level of animals. They hear these principles and say, I totally resonate with these. Am I a Buddhist? Many people tell me that. They say, I don't have any particular faith, but if I had to pick one, it would be Buddhist. Einstein has that famous quote that as Einstein looked at the universe, he said, the principles of Buddhism are what I observe. So in countries like Nepal, India, Thailand, Sri Lanka, traditional values have disappeared as what science, technology, and the global marketplace comes in from the West and is so seductive. So my slow, earth-based, nature-based principles of Buddhism just seem so impotent compared to technology. Wow, look at my phone. Technology allows me to use this device and do so much wonderful things, right? So why would I believe in Buddhism when Buddhism can't help me make a FaceTime call, a video phone, right? So that's a challenge indeed. What has happened to my Buddhist identity when technology and science and the marketplace lure me out into my senses? So these are questions that I raise when Pew Research Center says, oh, Buddhism is declining. I'm not so sure. If you ask about a traditional religious identity, Buddhism isn't a church in the West, not yet. In China, definitely, there is a Buddhist institution, been there for thousands of years. And to the degree that it can adapt, it will survive. Not a bit like what? The Roman Catholic Church. By the way, I didn't see any Roman Catholic statistics. That'd be interesting to see. My Irish Catholic friends, my Polish Catholic friends, the two countries in Europe that had the strongest Catholic identity, say that in the last decade, there has been an exodus from the Catholic Church. I think France may experience even more attrition because of the sadness around issues with the clergy. So anyway, Buddhism is not immune to that story either, mind you. But so, big question, what does it mean to be a Buddhist? How do you measure? Who is a Buddhist? Raise your hand. Okay, I raise my hand. Yeah. And we at Dharma Realm Buddhist University, mind you, are allowing people to come into a Buddhist monastery, a community, and study sutras and also study Hinduism, study Islam, study Christianity, study science, study mathematics, study natural science, and not pressure them at all to sign on to being a Buddhist. And yet, last month, there were these, as our new semester got underway at DRBU, we had a week of spiritual exercises. 61 people came to attend and to sit wearing masks in between, to stay in bubbles, walk around in silence, not to talk, but to meditate every day, to do lots of bowing. They did lots and lots of bowing. Buddhist practices, just as what? As an exposure, to have the experience, to taste the flavor of Buddhist practices. And amazing that 61 people, the student body is total is 50, but so many people came to DRBU, to Dharma Realm Buddhist University, to do the, I wonder if there's any photos. Let me just check just for fun here. I'm going to go to drbu.edu, drbu.edu. Here we go. Dharma Realm Buddhist University. Let's see if there was any, I'm curious here, campus life, events, programs. Maybe down below there were online community classes, community blog. The latest, yeah, events. Hold on here. Read more. DRBU students on Instagram. Oh my goodness. Yes, here it is right here. Okay, let's see if we get some pictures. There we are, eating outside during the student orientation. There were Dharma talks, meditating with a mask on. Here is Professor Verhoeven, Marty demonstrating bowing. Here is everybody meditating. This is in the room called the Wonderful Words Hall, Miao Yutang. Bhikshu Jin Chuan and Jin Wei leading. And the Theravada Bhikkhu who is joining them this semester. Here they are doing 3 steps, 1 bow. Right? So my point in sharing this is to say, here they are walking through nature, contemplative walking in silence on the campus. So just to say, as we look at who's a Buddhist, is Buddhism declining in the world? It's growing in the West. And those, in fact, are the vows of our teacher, Master Hsuan Hua. He said, in fact, that Buddhism was going to decline in the West. Japan and Korea, young Buddhists are few and far between. But that definition of who's a Buddhist, if you change the question to something like, how many of us are interested in looking into the Dharma? How many of us are finding correspondence between Dharma principles and the laws of science? I think people would perk right up. One important reason is because Buddha Dharma is not anti-science in its orientation. It doesn't proceed only from rigid theorems. Science itself. Buddhism is the most science-friendly faith, let's say. Because why? The Buddha, if you track his approach to his quest, his journey, he left everything comfortable and familiar and safe and pleasant, pleasurable, because he needed to know answers to the questions that had risen spontaneously in his mind. What is life about? That it leads to death and nobody has a choice. Nothing had ever defeated the prince before he became Buddha, the awakened one, the title. Nothing, he was a champion in everything he tried, from scholarship to diplomacy, to martial arts, to romance. He was happily married. Everything was accomplished by this brilliant young man until he saw an old person, a sick person, a corpse, and then a practitioner, someone who was cultivating the way. And he saw that, in fact, it is not impossible that I could also defeat mortality and death. So he set out, and sure enough, he did. His approach was very scientific. He kept a paper trail. He passed on his results. They were intersubjectively testable. Other people tried it. They succeeded as well. Different subjects got the same results. He rejected certain theories. When these propositions, these theorems, these proposals were given that you can accomplish the way by hanging upside down from a tree branch, that walking on coals or sleeping on nails will make you progress, will help you progress along the way. He tested it and said, nope, didn't help. The theory that you can defeat desire by forcing it to die, starving yourself, that was, the Buddha tried it, found it to be unreliable. Middle way is the way. If you have a body, you have to feed it. If you get sick, you have to take medicine. So all of these scientific approaches that the Buddha applied are still valid. And the sutras are his paper trail, his published results, that these are the principles I discovered. So how, starting from a premise that birth and death can end, that was his first proposition. And the millions of people and non-humans, devas as well, asuras as well, dragons as well, who have tested those principles since that time have found, yes, indeed, they still work. So Buddha Dharma is science friendly. It is not threatened by the discoveries of science. We have well-known Tibetan lamas, whom I will not name on the benefit of the translators, have said that if they were not monks, they would be scientists, because that's where things are being discovered in the world of the senses. And the world of the senses is the springboard for the world beyond the senses. It's not that you avoid science in order to wake up and get enlightened to the unconditioned. It's through the senses, through what science can discover and measure and know and describe and share, the things that science does so well, through that you reach the realm beyond the senses. So that's key. That's really, really important. And I think that's a very strong selling point for Buddhism in the 21st century. Maybe not so in countries and cultures where it's still entirely bound up in how it was always done, tradition. But that's true for any faith. Mainstream Christianity, mainstream Judaism is having a hard time now because the power of this device to, can't see my kookaburra, the power of the phone to give us what? Give us virtual friends, Facebook friends, Instagram friends, Snapchat friends. Doesn't do the same thing. Right? So without those fundamental relationships, oh my goodness, religion has a hard time because it's so bound up in the culture. So I would like to come back to the Pew Research model maybe in 10 years, if such a thing is possible, and ask them what they're seeing now. I kind of have a hunch that it's going to be different. Alrighty, okay. I promised we would touch the sutra one more time. We will. I want you to see what happens next. Can we do, you okay with, we jump back into the sutra, right? That was a long digression into responding to Professor Epstein sending me the 5 facts that the Pew Research Center tells us about Buddhism in the future. Okay, here we go. 佛子慈菩萨福作是念， 诸佛正法如是深深，如是寂静，如是寂灭，如是空，如是无相，如是无愿，如是无染，如是无量，如是广大。而诸凡夫心多邪见，无明复义，力骄慢高床，入可爱网中，行禅狂愁林，不能自出，心与兼极相应不舍，恒造诸趣受生因缘。We'll do that much, just that much. Just go to the bottom of the page. Okay. Disciples of the Buddha, the Bodhisattvas further make the following reflections. The Dharma of the Buddha is as profound as this, as quiet, as still and tranquil, as empty, as free of hallmarks, free of wanting, as undefiled, as limitless, as vast and great as this. Ordinary beings, on the other hand, allow their thoughts to go wrong. They're covered by a film of ignorance. They raise the banner of pride and arrogance. They're trapped by a net of craving and travel the dense forest of flattery and deceit until they can no longer extricate themselves. Their thoughts interact with stinginess and jealousy, which they never abandon. They constantly create the conditions for future rebirth. Okay, we're going to stop with the text there, but that's only halfway through the Bodhisattvas. The idiom, the Chengyu that we use is called reading them the riot act. You'd have to go back and find the riot act before that makes sense to you. What is the riot act? Why do you read it to them? So the Bodhisattva is scolding. Not scolding? Maybe not. Maybe diagnosing. Think of the Bodhisattva as a doctor. He's diagnosing. He's got his fingers on the pulse, where he's looking at the meters, the instrument that's done a reading on living beings, and we don't look very good. So I'm going to go back to this next week and swap out the pronoun for we instead of they. We living beings. Ordinary beings, on the other hand, allow our thoughts to go wrong. We are covered by a film of it, right? I'll do that. You get a lot more information out of it. But look how it starts. The Bodhisattvas now, what have they done? They've made vows. The heart of the first stage is vows, as well as happiness. And after those 10 huge vows the Bodhisattva made, what came next was those propositions of infinity. I'm going to make those vows forever. They're never not going to be working inside me. That's what the Bodhisattvas say. What follows next is faith. This faith arises because they've now cleared off the things that covered their nature before. Now they can see, I have a share in Buddhahood and all those incredible abilities that arise. I know that's ahead of me. I believe it. And here is a passage where the Bodhisattva goes, whoa, 10 appreciations of what the Dharma is. The Dharma of the Buddha is so deep, so quiet, so still, so tranquil, so empty, so unmarked, so free of desire, undefiled, limitless, vast and great. 10 qualities that the Bodhisattva appreciates. He's saying, Buddha Dharma, so good. Ra, Buddha Dharma, Ra, Ra, Ra. He's saying, go, go, go. This is the best stuff. It's profound, it's quiet, it's empty, it's got nothing in it that people go wrong with. It doesn't provoke your desires, it doesn't confuse you. It's just so good, vast and great, right? This is why, as I said 2 or 3 weeks ago, these successive passages in here are as close as the sutras get to poetry. Look at the qualities of the Dharma. Profound, so deep, so quiet, still and tranquil. It's empty, and yet it's vast and great, undefiled, limitless. Okay, that's his thought. And then immediately, okay, I want to point out here. What is this? These are the two sides of the Bodhi resolve. What have we said about the Bodhi resolve? We said, number one, it's I can be a Buddha. That's my potential. And two, I get it. I get there through taking beings across. So my potential is wisdom, but my immediate future is hard work with people whose thoughts go wrong, with beings who are covered with film of ignorance, who raise the banner of pride and arrogance, trapped in the net of craving, travel the dense force of flattering deceit, can't get out. Thoughts are stingy and jealous. We never let it go. We make the conditions for being thrown right back into samsara, right back into suffering. And these are the beings I'm going to save. These are the ones I'm going to take across. Here's the Bodhi resolve. When he makes that, first half, I can be a Buddha, it immediately reflects back onto how to do it and what's ahead. What's ahead is a lot of teaching, coming. So what do you need? You need the powers, the fearlessnesses, the special Buddha dharmas. You need the paramitas, all of those tools that he talked about previously. This is so good, right? And who says this is philosophy? Come on, get over yourself. Read it, first of all, before you say it's philosophy. It's not. This is a textbook of how to live a life well lived, a life of meaning, how to find a life with genuine meaning, a way to help the world where it needs it most. So last, before we stop, share a story. Heard this from our elder Dharma sister, Madalena, today. She was talking to some of Master Hua's old disciples, senior disciples, and they left the Bay. They came from Hong Kong, left the Bay Area, traveled into the U.S. interior, and the old gentleman, the father of the family, who was one of the faithful disciples, one who had faith and was a real cultivator, was advanced in years, quite elderly, and several weeks ago told his spouse, told his wife that his time was coming. He said, I saw myself dressed as a monk. I didn't have any, I shaved my head, I was wearing robes. I was reborn in heaven. I was in the heavens as a monk. I had that in my dream last night. He said, I think that's a sign that I'm probably ready to go, he said. And how his spouse responded was key. She didn't sob, she didn't wail, she didn't, curse heaven. She said, well, how can I help? How can we get you there? Because that's a good place to go. That's a good dream. We want to make sure you get to the heaven of your choice as a monk, the Pure Land, right? So the phone call today was to say that the children had gathered and the elderly gentleman went off, who died, and everybody, and these are not Buddhists, the next generation, they all heard celestial music. They heard music that they had never heard before. And it was kind of far off, but it was also close, and you had to listen, but it was everywhere. And Grandpa and Dad passed away. So that was today's phone call. So these miracles, no, it's cause and effect, but it's different causes than we're used to. Right? Special, it's called sheng yin guo, shu sheng yin guo, sublime cause and effect. And we would say, hallelujah, hallelujah. Now, I didn't do my acknowledgement of country, and I need to do it now, so I get in the habit every time. The Kombumerri people of the Ugambe language group practice the spiritual connections to land and to all of creation in this location where I'm sitting now for thousands of years. And today we acknowledge them as the traditional custodians with gratitude that we share this land today, with sorrow for the cost of that sharing and hope that we can move to a place of justice and partnership together. We acknowledge their wisdom and their elders, past, present and emergent. So we want to keep that habit going. All right. Next week, more reading the Riot Act to, how do you translate that, Cliff? Reading the Riot Act. That's more of the Bodhisattva scolding. When you read the Riot Act, you tell the truth, and it doesn't matter if they're happy or not, right? Scolding living beings, telling the truth about living beings. What a religion. My followers are a mess. My followers are in big trouble, says the Buddha. They are really in trouble. So I've got to save them. Okay, I'm going to click on my browser and take us out. Jinchuan Shi, Jinwei Shi, do you have anything to share? Are they down in Santa Cruz and don't
We're
know
actually here in Berkeley.
We're in Berkeley
today.
We came back to Berkeley.
Here we go.
Our program is pretty much the same this week.
Okay.
We have.
Hey, Jinchuan Shi, before you launch into that, you see what's on the screen?
Yes, I do.
Okay, you want to say a little bit about the, I'll show your picture here. Here you both are.
Jinwei is here with me.
Oh,
Yeah, both of you.
yeah.
And the name of the bhikkhu behind you is?
Ajahn Kovilo.
yeah.
Ajahn Kovilo from Abhayagiri Monastery.
Yes.
So you want to say just a word about I don't know if you were listening, but my point was that in terms of faith in Buddhism and calling yourself a Buddhist, the Pew Research Center didn't give us their research, the questions they asked to get their surveys. And their conclusion was that Buddhism is disappearing, it's declining in the world. And I was saying that depending on the questions you ask, you get very different answers. Here at Dharma and Buddhist University's, what was it called? The title, CES?
This is a contemplative exercise immersion.
CES, contemplative exercise. CEI. Here are 61 people. We didn't ask them, are they Buddhists or are they going to become Buddhists? But look at the enthusiasm. So anyway, with that in mind, you want to give some commentary?
Yeah, I think and on that theme, I would say what's really interesting, we did the 3 steps, 1 bow, you could say practice, but throughout the whole week, you could say we actually didn't formally bow to the Buddha externally. We were, and there's students who I would say are not actually Buddhists. And actually one of the most moving sharings from the students was actually from a student who was not Buddhist at the very end. And so I'll maybe just give a little quick synopsis. So Marty introduced the 3 steps, 1 bow as a process of, I think, returning, repenting, and reconnecting. So the returning is the first 3 steps, wei yu zixingfu, I take refuge with the Buddha, my self nature, and my own waking potential, the dharma of my nature, the sangha of my nature. And then the bowing is a chance to really reflect on our lives and repent. And then the extending up is when we reconnect to humanity through a heart of service. So those are what each of those 3 steps, bowing down and standing up, were tuning into in the heart.
So mind ground
kind of a mind, so he called it bowing as a heart cleansing practice or something like that. And so at the very end, one of the students shared that he actually had in the recent fires in California, lost his house twice. In one fire, he lost his home. And so he moved to his father's home. And there in the recent fires, he lost his father's home too, is lost. And so over these last, months, he really felt homeless, really lost, his ground. And people say, oh, it's just okay. Wherever we are is our home. And, it's no problem, But he says, it doesn't work. It didn't help. And he said, but actually when I was doing this practice, I had a sense, what was it said? The 3 were,
thank you.
He said, I'm thank you. I'm sorry. I'm going home. Those are the 3 things he said. He said the 3 bows, the 3 steps, the bow and the standing up is thank you. I'm sorry. I'm going home.
Wow.
So the whole week, because that's what he did. And at the end, I don't feel like I have an answer, but somehow I feel like I'm getting closer.
Yeah, very powerful.
It was very powerful. And this is not a Buddhist.
And it's interesting, it's so much what we experience in the CI 4 days of practice was connected with the Master Hua says, I didn't bring Chinese Buddhism to the West, to America. I didn't bring even Buddhism. I bring in the knowledge of transformation of humans' hearts, right? The human, of opening to human potential, even without using the word Buddhism. We can hit this principles and transform deeply people's lives in a very real way.
So yeah. So anyways, that was to me, it was very moving, knowing the student from having been in class with him and just hearing that. I was like, wow, and he really got it, And
he's non-Buddhist.
Non-Buddhist. He's non-Buddhist, but what he did was deeply transformation. And so is that Buddhist? To me, that's Buddhism.
Yeah. How we define the Buddhism? Like Dharma, are you asking? How we define this?
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Okay, that's a powerful story. So do we want to, I'll bring up.
We can go to the Berkeley Monastery website. It's the regular events. We started up again. We just returned back from Snow Mountain Monastery. So I'll take the first thing off. But we returned, and so all our regular ceremonies have started up. Right now, we're also in the midst of a Noble Friendship Pod retreat with service space. So it's a little bit too late to sign up, but that's also going on. And in the mornings of the Dharma reflection, 7:15 and 7:30 a.m., we've been sharing kind of each step of that journey. Other than that, we have,
and those who want to still practice 3 steps 1 bow.
Yeah, that's happening.
We're doing this every day from 7:30 to 8. Yeah.
Okay. And then just the regular. Jean Forsh has been doing the regular recitation at 12 to 12:30, and on Saturdays it's 2 to 3:30 as well. And in the evenings, we have the evening ceremony and the sutra lectures. Like tonight's Dharma Sure from Heng Sure. Fridays is Marty, and we have some of the other teachers teaching, like Stephen Tainer, James Baraz, I think, is teaching on a slightly different link. And I think there's also Kevin Griffin there. You can see.
Great.
Dharma recovery.
So yeah. So we have a very full program every week for those who wish to join in.
Okay. Is Amelia teaching? How does she do yoga and stuff online?
I haven't participated, so I'm not sure. Do you know, Jing?
I saw we need to maybe reach out to her. Definitely, she offer from time to time different courses. And
this is Professor.
Does she doing this on Mondays regularly? This is a question. But
she had us post that a while back. I'm gonna double check with her about what exactly she's doing now. But she was doing things to help people during the COVID time.
Yeah.
Because of your health and strength.
Her class is yoga and qigong, and to do that online is a challenge. You have to. So, okay, very good. Appreciate that. That's good news. So next week, more on the Bodhisattva's clear seeing of how living beings don't get the Buddha Dharma, which is so quiet, so deep, so profound, so tranquil, so vast. Living beings we are bound up in our broadband networks and are having our Zoom meetings, muting our microphones. We're lost in the details and miss the big picture. So anyway, the Bodhisattva next week continues at that and then says, even so, I'm still going to teach them. And my Buddhahood depends upon teaching those living beings. So he or she means it. Alrighty, let us now. Oh, where did it go? Right there. Okay, we've got a mantra. Currently, I believe, let's see, one more time here. The US is, our statistics at the moment are 1,128 deaths per day, United States. 83,000 new cases on the average per day. 83,000 people catch COVID per day. 15% rise in the last 2 weeks. Deaths are dropping, minus 16% in the last 2 weeks. But, oh my goodness, that's not a hopeful. So in other words, COVID-19 is with us here in Australia. The borders around Queensland have just been relaxed. So it's going to be among us soon. So this is a perfect time to learn Medicine Buddha's cure for what ails us, not just COVID-19, but all kinds of sicknesses, because it sets the heart on the right wavelength. We chanted in Sanskrit, but the vibrations are universal. So please transfer the merit to whoever. Appreciation for the life and work of Rita Simmel. I've got a picture of the Buddha Hall at the City of 10,000 Buddhas. I invite you all to join me for 3 bows. Here we go. And 3 bows to our teacher with our newly straightened horizon line. Here we go. Here we go. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. All right, everyone. Ami Tofo. That's all for us. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.